I can assure you that it will take a very tangible ghost to frighten me.
I stood with my glass in my hand.
It is your own choosing. 28 years I have lived and never seen a ghost yet.
Yes, and 28 years you have lived and never seen the likes of this house. There are many things to see when one is still but 28.
I half suspected these old people were trying to enhance the spectral terrors of their house. I put down my glass. I caught a glimpse of myself in a queer old mirror.
Well, if I see anything tonight, I shall be much wiser. It's your own choosing.
I heard a faint sound in the passage outside. The door creaked on its hinges. A second old man entered, more bent, more wrinkled than the first. His lower lip hung pale from decaying yellow teeth. He sat clumsily and began to cough. The man with the withered hand gave a short glance of dislike. The old woman took no notice. The old man became aware of my presence. I caught a glimpse of his eyes, small, bright, and inflamed.
Why don't you drink?
His shaking hand splashed half the beer on the table. A monstrous shadow of him crouched upon the wall, mocking his action. I must confess, I had scarcely expected these grotesque custodians. The human qualities seemed to drop from old people day by day. And that night, perhaps, I was in the mood for uncomfortable impressions. I resolved to get away from their vague foreshadowings of evil.
If you will show me to this haunted room of yours, I will make myself comfortable there.
The old man with the cough jerked his head back, startling me. No one answered me. I waited a minute. The old woman stared like a dead body into the fire.
If you will please show me to this haunted room, I will relieve you from the task of entertaining me. There's a candle on the slab outside the door. But if you go to the red room tonight...
This night of all nights.
Very well. And which way do I go? You go along the passage for a bit, until you come to a spiral staircase. On the second landing is a green door. Go through that, down the long corridor. The red room is on your left, up steps.
And you are really going?
This night of all nights.
It is what I came for.
The old man rose and staggered round the table. I left the door wide open until the candle was well alight. Then I shut them in and walked down the chilly, echoing passage. I must confess, the oddness of these three old pensioners in charge of the castle had affected me curiously. This was despite my effort to keep myself in a matter-of-fact phase. They seemed to belong to another age, an older age, an age when things spiritual were indeed to be feared. The ornaments in the room about them are ghostly, thoughts of vanished men haunting the world of today. And the passage I was in, long and shadowy, was as gaunt and cold as a dead thing. But with an effort, I sent such thoughts away. The passage was chilly and dusty. My candle flared and made shadows cower and quiver. Echoes rang up and down the spiral staircase. A shadow came sweeping up after me. I stopped, listening to a rustling I fancied I heard creeping behind me. Then, satisfied of the silence, I pushed open the unwilling door. I stood in the silent corridor. Moonlight picked out everything in vivid black shadow or silvery illumination. Everything seemed in its proper position. The house might have been deserted only yesterday. I was about to advance and stopped abruptly. A shadow fell with marvelous distinctness, giving me the impression of someone crouching to waylay me. The thing jumped upon my attention suddenly. That incident restored my nerve. A porcelain Chinaman whose head rocked as I passed scarcely startled me. The door of the Red Room and the steps up to it were in a shadowy corner. I moved my candle to see clearly the recess in which I stood before opening the door. Here it was, I thought, that my predecessor was found. The memory gave me a twinge of apprehension. I glanced over my shoulder, then opened the door of the Red Room rather hastily. I stood surveying the scene of my vigil, the great Red Room of Lorraine Castle. The room in which the young Duke had died, or rather began his dying. He had opened the door and fallen headlong down the steps I had just ascended. That was the end of his vigil. Never, I thought, had a stroke better served the ends of superstition. There were other, older stories that clung to the room. The tale of a timid wife and her husband's cruel jest. Looking round that huge, shadowy room, one could well understand the legends that had sprouted in its black corners. The stillness of desolation brooded over it all. Some impalpable quality of that ancient room disturbed me. I tried to fight the feeling down. I resolved to make a systematic examination of the place. After satisfying myself of the fastening of the door, I began to walk round the room, tucking up the valances of the bed and opening its curtains wide. In one place, there was a distinct echo to my footsteps. I pulled up the blinds and examined the fastenings of the several windows. Attracted by falling dust, I leaned forward and looked up the blackness of the wide chimney. Trying to preserve my scientific attitude, I began tapping the oak paneling for any secret opening, but I desisted before reaching the alcove. I saw my face in a mirror, white. There were two big mirrors in the room, each with candles. The fire was laid, an unexpected consideration. I lit it to keep down any disposition to shiver. When it was burning well, I stood with my back to it and regarded the room again. I had pulled up an armchair and a table to form a kind of barricade before me. On this lay my revolver, ready to hand. My precise examination had done me a little good, but I still found the remoter darkness too stimulating for imagination. The echoing of the stir and crackling of the fire was no sort of comfort to me. The shadow in the alcove began to display that odd suggestion of a lurking living thing, and to reassure myself, I walked with a candle into it. I satisfied myself that there was nothing tangible there. I stood that candle upon the floor of the alcove and left it there. By this time, I was in a state of considerable nervous tension, though my reason found no cause. My mind, however, was perfectly clear. I postulated nothing supernatural could happen. My mind reverted to the three old and distorted people downstairs. The somber reds and grays of the room troubled me. Even with 7 candles, the place was merely dim. The light in the alcove flaring and the fire flickering kept shadows perpetually stirring. Casting about for a remedy, I recalled wax candles I had seen in the corridor. With a slight effort, carrying a candle and leaving the door open, I walked out into the moonlight and presently returned with as many as 10. These I put in the various knickknacks of china with which the room was sparsely adorned. I lit and placed them where shadows had lain deepest, arranging and rearranging them, until at last my 17 candles were so placed that not an inch of the room but had direct light. It occurred to me that when the ghost came, I could warn him not to trip over them. The room was now quite brightly illuminated. There was something very cheering in these little flames. I stood watching the minute hand of my watch creep towards midnight. Then something happened in the alcove. I did not see the candle go out. I simply turned and saw that the darkness was there, as one might start and see the unexpected presence of a stranger. The black shadow had sprung back to its place. Taking the matchbox, I walked across the room. As I succeeded with striking the match, something seemed to blink on the wall. The 2 candles on the table by the fireplace were extinguished. I rose at once to my feet, terrified. I walked back, relit one, and as I did so, I saw the candle in the right sconce of a mirror wink and go right out, and almost immediately, its companion followed it. While I stood gaping, the candle at the foot of the bed went out. At that, the candle on the corner of the wardrobe and alcove went out.
This won't do.
My hands trembled so much that twice I missed the rough paper of the matchbox. As the mantle emerged from darkness, 2 candles in the remoter end were eclipsed. But with the same match, I also relit others, so for a moment I seemed to gain on the extinctions. As I stood undecided, an invisible hand seemed to sweep out the 2 candles on the table. Wrapped about me in a stifling embrace, it sealed my vision and crushed my self-possession. Then something touched the floor. I know I thought suddenly of the moonlit corridor and made a stumbling run for the door. But I struck myself heavily against something and fell down. I opened my eyes in daylight. My head was roughly bandaged. The man with the withered hand was watching my face. I looked about me trying to remember what had happened, and for a space, I could not recollect. I saw the old woman, no longer terrible, pouring drops of medicine from a little phial.
Where am I? I seem to remember you, and yet I cannot remember who you are. We found you at dawn. There was blood on your forehead and lips.
I wondered that I had ever disliked him. The 3 of them in daylight seemed commonplace old folk. It was very slowly I recovered the memory of my experience.
You believe now that the room is haunted? Yes, the room is haunted. And you've seen it. We who've been here all our lives have never dared. Tell us, is it truly the old Earl who? No, it is not.
I told you so. It is his poor young countess who was frightened.
It is not. There is neither ghost of Earl nor ghost of countess in that room. There is no ghost there at all. But worse, far worse. The worst of all the things that haunt poor mortal men. And that is, in all its nakedness, fear. Fear that will not have light nor sound.
Then the old man with the bent lifted his face sideways to see me and spoke.
That is it. I knew that was it. A power of darkness. To put such a curse upon a home, it lurks there always. You can feel it even in the daytime. Even on a bright summer's day, in the hangings, in the curtains, keeping behind you however you face about. In the dusk, it creeps in the corridor and follows you, so that you dare not turn. It is even as you say. Fear itself is in that room. Black fear. And there it will be, so long as this house of sin endures.
And so I learned the nature of the shadow that haunted the Red Room. It was not a specter of the dead, but a living, breathing entity born of the human mind itself. Fear, an enemy that needs no substance to be real, no form to be terrifying. It preys on solitude and doubt. It can strip away reason, courage, and even the will to survive, armed only with the power of our own imagination. The Red Room taught me that the most formidable ghosts are those we carry within ourselves, the ones we must all eventually face.